Hi, my name is John Perkins,
My name is Matthew J. Watts.
and we're introducing a brand new podcast called Postulating Solutions with Preachers. We're so excited to come to you with this podcast because we're coming, one of us, myself, from Jackson, Mississippi, and I have the great Matthew J. Watts all the way from Charleston, West Virginia. And if I may say so myself, he is one of the great minds, and he's one of the great preachers. He's one of the great biblical teachers that we have today. But his outlook on life, his outlook on society is one that is pretty much unmatched by others. And so I really look forward to this podcast. I really look forward to he and I exchanging ideas. I really look forward to you all exchanging ideas with us. I look forward to, most of all, you all asking questions from us, and us engaging those questions. And so I look forward to this opportunity that we would have here together. But right now, we just want to introduce ourselves because it's very important that you get to know who we are so that you can, number one, subscribe to this podcast. And then number two, share it with others and just know the heart that we have for our neighborhood and our community. And so I asked the question, Pastor Matthew J. Watts, why is it that you live in your own neighborhood, in your own community? Most preachers don't do that. Most preachers don't live in walking distance from their church. Most people don't do projects and have homes and all of these things in their neighborhood and community, as well as live amongst the people. And most preachers don't smell like sheep. Why is that different for you?
Well, Pastor John, after that wonderful introduction, I can't wait to hear what I have to say because you spoke so highly of me. I don't know who you were talking about, but I really appreciate the question, and I think I was greatly inspired, like a lot of Christian community developers, by your grandfather, the great John M. Perkins, and your grandmother, Vera Mae Perkins. And I got hold of their books over 30 plus years ago, the first two books they put together, Not Justice Road and the Quiet Revolution. Mm-hmm. I was just challenged. I was challenged by what Dr. Perkins said as he laid out the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth. That Jesus did not commute between heaven and the earth.
Yes.
But he came down and he pitched a tent. He tabernacled among the people, mm-hmm. and that he identified with the people in baptism and with their struggles, and that and he was among the people. And so, having been challenged and inspired by Dr. Perkins, after commuting back and forth from the community for some time, I realized it was time for my wife and my family to move in the neighborhood. We felt like that by doing so, we would show the people we valued the community where they live. We valued them. We were not ashamed or afraid to live among them, and that we would start with the people, with what they knew and what they had, and build on that as we learned from Dr. Perkins. And so that's our story. We're sort of sticking to it, and we feel like it gave us credibility. It's a lot different when we were commuting in and out versus us actually living right in the very heart, the epicenter, right of the west side of Charleston. When we moved in, I mean, it was one of the toughest streets. There were 35 vacant houses on the street that I lived on. And a lot of things were going on that was pretty nefarious in those places. So we had to challenge the media of how do we get control of the street that we live on, and work with the people to do that, to show them that working together we could bring about some change. So we've been inspired by the people, by their resiliency and their courage and their commitment to make their community a better place to live.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned, and you started to mention that old Chinese proverb that Christian community development is anchored from: go to the people, live among them, love them, plan with them, build on what they know, start with what they have. And when the best leaders leave, the people would say, we've
We
done
did
it
it ourselves.
Yeah. And so you're doing that in Charleston, West Virginia. Me, the youngster, I mean, you being my friend, you being my mentor, me just trying to glean wisdom from you. I myself live in the neighborhood, live in the community, and the same as you. But I felt as if I didn't move into the neighborhood and the community until my children went to the local elementary school. It was when we were sending our kid to the private school, and when we were sending them to preschool over here, to the Christian preschool and all that, and we weren't getting the results that we wanted. You know what I mean?
Right,
And,
right.
and we were like, well, what's wrong with the school down the street? I mean, come on, the school is right here. What's wrong with the school down the street? And what's wrong with the kids are we too good to have our children mixing with the children down the street? Come on. And so I really felt as if that was when we fully moved into the neighborhood and we fully invested into the community. And so, yes, right now we are doing a work here in Jackson, Mississippi. It's called Common Ground. And our church plant is 5 years old. And we're engaged in the work of Christian community development like yourself. But it's when we didn't buy. Matter of fact, Wells Fargo gave.
Oh,
Let me say it one more time. Gave us a building in the highest violent crime area in all of Hinds County.
the prime property.
Prime real estate. Let me tell you how it went down. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, right? And I'm there for a conference, and a gentleman from Jackson State, from the foundation of Jackson State, and he's raising money and all that stuff. He calls and he says, I thought about you. I said, oh man, that's nice. I'm glad you was thinking about me. He said, Wells Fargo just called and they said they was giving away a property. I said, you thought about me about a property? I was like, I know I don't want it. If you ain't gonna take it, I know I don't want it. And so he said, it's on West Capitol. I said, then sure enough, I don't want it. And so I said, listen, it's only one building that I would even think about taking on West Capitol, and that's that old barbershop on West Capitol. I mean, you would have to, and even then, you'd have to convince me, you had to push me. Everybody had to push me into the street to make me jump out there and take that building. And he said, okay, listen, let me just send you the pictures because they're giving away this building and they're going to give you $5,000. I said, my ears came up, and they're going to give you $5,000. And so, it was the building. It was the barbershop. Oh, I said, oh Lord, you got a sense of humor. So
you almost told him to give you $5,000 and give the building to somebody else.
That's exactly what I was saying. Let me talk to Wells Fargo now, please.
Let somebody else with the gift.
I was like, oh man, because what can I get for this building? You know what I mean? Oh man. So, and so I think on it and I pray on it and I said, let me just ask the people. Because then I know they're going to turn this thing down. You with me? You with me, right? And I I give this speech at our Bible study. I say, I know we're committed to this work of holistic community development. And Jackson State called my phone the other day, and they offered us a building from that they didn't want from Wells Fargo, and Wells Fargo is giving $5,000 with the building. And it's down the street from the zoo, and the zoo about to go out of business. The zoo about to go out of business, and the zoo is about to lose its accreditation.
The animals leaving the neighborhood.
Right. The animals leaving. Right, exactly. And then I'm saying, the businesses have left and dried up. It's a war zone down there, and I'm pretty sure. Can we, do I have y'all's permission to turn this down? They said, Pastor, this is where we ought to be. I said, oh no. And so I went ahead. We took that building, and that's where our barbershop and beauty shop is, and now we're starting now a family resource center there, and our church offices are there, and there's just a work going on there. Miss Taylor is right here helping me to record. I can't do one thing without Miss Taylor, helping me. I'll trip over my own feet, that sort of thing. And but she just gathers the kids. I told her when I recruited her here from Minneapolis, Minnesota, I told her I'm an outfitter with some Tang and some pickles and some Kool-Aid and some hot chips, and we're gonna get some kids, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. But we're committed to this work of holistic community development, and I know you're committed to this work of West Side Revive, and people are going to hear a whole lot more from us. And so in regards to those things. And so right now, the COVID-19 situation is what is on everybody's mind. It's on everybody's heart. It's really the thought process. It's really the thought process that is taking up our hearts, and for some it's causing anxiety. For some, it's the thought that, hey, my retirement is dwindled, and I'm in my mid-50s, and I might have to change careers. Am I ready for this? Do I have to go back to school? That type of stress and that type of anxiety. What's out there for me? Just having to go on unemployment. I never been on unemployment. Somebody's in their 40s and they've never been on unemployment, and now for the first time they're on unemployment. What is this like? And so right now you have been preaching through the COVID-19 situation. Matter of fact, you call it praying through the COVID-19 situation. And so would you tell me what is God doing with you and stirring your heart right now? How is he moving with you and stirring your heart?
Well, this novel, epic coronavirus pandemic, it's arrested the attention of the entire world. God has grabbed hold of the entire world from coast to coast, from continent to continent. And basically, I believe that God has got the world's attention to see which way are people going to look. Are they going to look around for some other resources, some way to try to maneuver and finesse themselves out of this situation or circumstance? Anytime there's something like this happen, there's opportunities for exploitation, for nations to exploit nations. When this all comes out, we're going to find out we've probably been exploited by other nations in trying to purchase Q-tips and trying to purchase PEP equipment that we no longer manufacture and make. And we've probably been exorbitant prices that our government don't want us to know that we're paying. So there's economic exploitation going on right now within this nation. Anytime there is a horrific situation like this, there's exploitation internally. It's going to come to find out as we now understand that banks have already scraped off $10 billion of the PPE money that was supposed to go to low income and small businesses. And so these are type things happening. So for me, it was a sobering time after 36 years of pastoral ministry. And after preaching basically every week for 36 years, I sit in my office and thought about that the church, for the first time in my life of 64 plus years, was going to be closed.
Wow.
That the church would actually be closed. That the doors of the physical edifice buildings would not be open.
Yes, sir.
And that was really quite a moment for me. And I thought, Lord, what am I going to do? For the last 36 years, my life has centered around preparing for Sundays and Wednesday nights and taking to the flock during the week. And as I thought about not being able to preach, not being able to see the people physically, not being able to visit people in the hospital, not be able to host funerals, which we do a lot of in the west side of Charleston because we have one of the largest sanctuaries, and beginning to realize that everything that outside of my family that held my life together was being disrupted. And I said, Lord, what can I do? And I had never really been on Facebook. Matter of fact, I'd been averse to it and heard a lot of negative things about what was happening out there. But I feel like that.
You pushed back against me, didn't you?
Absolutely. and against everybody else who tried to drag and pull me into the social media world. But sitting in my study before the last funeral, I spoke to my chief of staff that Friday before about it. She said, well, you've had a Facebook account for 6 years. You just never use it. We post things when you're doing in the community out there. So it's already up and running. Give me your phone. And I gave it to him. 3 minutes later, she gave it back. All you got to do is hit that blue and white F and you can be on Facebook. So that's kind of how it started. Sitting in my study, I decided to record on my camera phone a message to the community, a message of hope. And then I looked at it and thought it was decent enough to post, and I posted it on Facebook. And I was surprised at the response. And I think initially was curiosity. People say, well, what's he doing? What's the dinosaur doing, right? He's been somewhere in a cave somewhere. He knew how to get on Facebook.
He came out of the cave, right?
Yeah, he came out of the cave. He came out of the 3rd century.
Right. The old mangy dog that came out.
The old lion.
Right, the old lion that came. That's a good one. That's a good one right there.
The raw one last time.
Right. That's a good one. That's a good one, yeah. Man.
And I was surprised for our little community in a couple of days, 400-500 people had viewed it. And it kind of surprised me just within our neighborhood and in the city. And then Sunday was coming. I said, I think I'll just preach. And I preached that Sunday morning. And I said, I can do this. And I said, Lord, maybe you're leading me just to do this. And maybe this will be my offering. You my offering to the community.
Yes.
And initially I said that I was going to preach twice a day, until the pandemic passed over. And then once I got into the realized that was probably a bit much. But for the last, it'd be 30 days today. I began 30 days ago. I preached 46 times over that 30-day period.
Yeah.
And we've gathered the following, and we're calling the people to, this is what we're calling preaching and praying our way through the coronavirus pandemic. We're going to preach and pray our way through this storm. And so it's been a wonderful, encouraging thing. And out of that, my daughter, who's a nurse, she's one of those essential workers on the front line at the largest hospital in our city. She said, Dad, I'm really discouraged. I could really use a pickup. And so can you send me something? And I just wrote her a little devotional and texted to her. She shared it with a friend of hers that's holding the nursing and the critical care unit where the COVID patients are. She said, she'd like me to share this. And so I started sharing that with them. And then so I just posted on Facebook. And so I'll do a 26-second, every day, a 26-second little devotional on my story. And then I'll post a written devotional on my timeline. And I've been really encouraged with the response to it. So basically what we decided is that I appreciate everything has been done by the medical professionals, by the public health officials, things have been done to try to keep everybody safe. But I really felt that the Lord speaking to me was now was the time for me to return to calling of a preacher and to put on my prophetic mantle. So,
yes, sir.
New Testament prophet, to lift up the name of Christ, to lift up the word of God, to call people to repentance and confession, and to challenge people to use this period to really reach out as much as they could in the name of Christ. And so, last time I shared on this particular theme is that we decided to take each of the elements of the best practice to be healthy, the thorough washing and cleansing of one's hands, the whole idea of maintaining a social distance of at least 6 feet, and the idea that is the way that you break the spread by not assembling with numbers of people. And so we need to have, that's the natural. We need a spiritual formula as to how we're going to break the coronavirus. And so we said there must be a thorough and efficient washing of the heart through confession and repentance and the reading and meditation of the Word of God. And there must be a spiritual connecting, right? We don't need to disconnect spiritually. So using social media and other means of communication to maintain a connection with the Lord, but maintain connection with each other. Because we're told not to forsake the assembling of ourselves together. And the coronavirus pandemic should not separate us spiritually as the people of God. And then lastly, in terms of breaking the spread, we said we've got to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ during this period of time. And so trying to exhort the people to do that. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. And the Lord has done some great things as a result of connecting me with some people. You and I did some services together, which has been a great blessing to the Charleston Community Trust, also to the community of Jackson.
Yes.
Some young lady up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania that I've never seen to this day. We've talked on the phone several times, and she wanted to be an encouragement. So she put together a temporary website, mjwattsministries.com. So she started to record my messages when I preached them live onto the website so that people who don't have access to Facebook and some of the elderly people don't want them to do with it. But 5 minutes after I preached them, they're posted on the website. So my elderly people in my church, if they feel comfortable, they don't have to backslide.
They don't have to start sinning by getting on social media.
Get on social media with the rest of us heathens. So,
oh boy,
it's just been a blessing, and so we're greatly encouraged. The Lord has encouraged us, and He gave us the energy and the strength to do it. And if the Lord says the same and continues to give us the energy and the passion, we hope to be able to complete the task of preaching at least once a day until the pandemic passes over.
Yes. I mean, when you started out, preaching twice a day, I was just, you remember my jaw was dropped. I was, hey man, you preaching 2 sermons a day. I was like, look, how long can you keep this? I was like, I don't want to see you wear out.
What did Martin Luther King say? How long? Not long.
That's a good one. And not long. Yeah. All right. Don't get me to do it. Okay. Here we go. Now, people are saying, hey man, these guys are just having fun on here. What's the purpose of this podcast? There is a purpose for this podcast. The purpose of this podcast is that we want you to understand that we're preachers. We are preachers, but for so long, particularly Black preachers in the Black community have been more than just preachers. We have been people who have had to do a lot of things I won't say everything, that's too dogmatic, but we've had to do a lot of things and be a lot of things to people, and more like a utility knife. That was your word for it, right? A utility knife. And so, um, but most of all, what you and I are doing as part of this utility knife is that we're thinking about uh, the situation that lies ahead, the situation that exists in front of us, and the resources that are around us, and how can we solve some of these problems that we face today. And so, I want the the people who hear us and engage with us to know that this is the reason that this podcast has come together. We're not just we're gonna laugh, we're gonna have fun, but for the most part, we're going to really engage a thought process. You want to add something to that?
I think you've kind of laid that out well. Not only are we preachers, but we are also pastors,
Yes, sir.
and we are responsibility for a flock of people, that the Lord has put under our care to watch over their souls. And since their souls are in their bodies, we've got to watch over their bodies as well. And our churches are in communities and neighborhoods, and so we have a responsibility for our families, our own wives, children, immediate family, extended family, for the flock and their families, and for the community and the neighborhood. And so, like the pastors of old, from the slave plantation to Jim Crow segregation in the South, that we've had to feel the pain of the people,
Mm-hmm.
try to comfort the people, console them during that pain, but also to encourage them and to challenge them and to stir their faith, to continue to look to the Lord, the God of their salvation, for help and for strength. But we're also trying to be what the African American preacher slash pastor slash prophet has been historically.
Yes.
And that is a thought leader.
Yes.
That had I like to say, the intellectual curiosity
Mm-hmm.
to really try to figure things out and to postulate solutions. How do we help the people?
That's
How
right.
do we help them? How do we strengthen families? How do we help the single mother with the sons who she don't know how to quite deal with? How do we comfort even the young lady who is pregnant out of wedlock and realize that her life is not lost, that there's still a future for her? And so I believe that the time has come for us to build on the rich heritage and the historical legacy of the Black preacher pastor of old, and then merge that with the contemporary training that we've received as Christian community developers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And realize that there's still thinking men and women in the pulpits in Black churches,
Mm-hmm.
and that the Black preacher and the Black pastor still has something to say.
Yes.
That can stand between the two worlds,
Right.
the world of the Bible and the world of West Jackson and the world of the west side of Charleston, and bring the heavenly perspective to the earth, but postulate real solutions to show that the kingdom of God was not something of antiquity, was not something merely in the day of Jesus Christ on the earth, but the kingdom of God still moves, getting through the local church. As pastor preachers provide the vision, the passion, the leadership, and the courage and motivation to do what the Lord has called us to do.
Yeah, that's real good. That's real good. You called me Sunday night as I and we are all, just reviewing that which the Lord has already placed in our heart, probably early this week, earlier sometime the week before, the week of, and for me it was Luke chapter 12, and the great parable there of building bigger barns, and and you called me and said, "Hey man, turn to CNN." I said, what's on CNN? Let me get this together. What's on CNN? You said it's the color of COVID-19. They've had magic on. They've had some of the, all these stars, but you ought to see this. You ought to see this. Snoop Dogg and Puff Daddy just came on. There was no preachers. There was no preachers invited to the deal. They didn't even get Al Sharpton. They didn't get T.D. Jakes. They didn't invite any of the preachers, but they did invite Snoop Dogg and Puff Daddy, and it was Puff Daddy and Snoop Dogg that said, "We got to pray."
It's the truth.
Yeah, and really begin to be the moral voice.
That's the truth.
To lead us spiritually during this COVID-19 situation. And so it wasn't until after we got off the phone that I was really able to watch it. But it was really something. It was really something to me. And so I'm really, I guess I'm asking the question here. I'm putting a couple questions together because you've already made mention that the church is empty.
Think about it, John. Hold your thought there.
Yes. Yeah.
Think about this, Pastor John. Is that the two individuals hosting the show of the color of COVID-19? I mean, very well respected, gifted, talented, intellectual people.
Right.
Don Lemon, and Vance Jones, and they do great work.
Right.
Atlanta, Georgia, right? Atlanta, Georgia has some of the largest churches and some of the most prominent pastors, in the United States of America. But the thing that was so telling to me that in their thinking that the preacher pastor shouldn't be a part of this conversation.
Right.
And that's what's really telling. Can you imagine 50 years ago, 50 plus years ago?
No.
Can you imagine somebody
no.
pulling something together to talk about a pandemic affecting the Black community and Black preachers not being invited?
No, absolutely not. No, and now that it was Booker T. Washington. My kids reading through the book.
Spent most of his life in West Virginia, as a matter of fact.
Most of his childhood. And so he gets an education, and he says, and as he's writing this about getting an education in Tuskegee, all that it took to become a pastor, you know what I mean, a call, was to have an education, you know what I mean. If you had an education, it was time for you to preach. It was time for you to preach because you could communicate clearly, and at the very least, read the Word of God. You with me? At the very least. But no. I'm thinking about 50 years ago. No, absolutely not. I mean, the leadership was the preachers, and so and not even just that. It was more voices like Malcolm who were able to stand up, who I greatly respect and admire. But you mentioned, hey, the churches are empty. You mentioned, they're empty, and now we are sending the signal through cyberspace, social media. Okay, now the church is having an impact, and which wasn't happening before, right? Churches that was not trying to engage trying to engage young people before, now they're on that. Now they're in that that realm, right? But what I'm seeing is that the idols are falling. Nobody cares too much if Dak Prescott gets $100 million that you ain't gonna spend one penny of it. I don't know a whole bunch of people who care the same way that they care whether or not the NBA resumes its season or not, or whether or not there's an NBA championship in June, when it's life and death every time you go outdoors. When your mother and your father are out there, and it's life and death. And so we are now in this place now, and we're in the place now where the Black community is being ravished the most. And so as we come back, we're getting ready to take a break, I want to bring you back, and we're going to talk about the COVID-19's effect on the Black community, and as we talked about Puff Daddy, and as we talked about Snoop Dogg, and no offense to them, I know that they did, and they did well, they did right, talking about prayer, and so as we take this break, I want to remind you that this is the Postulating Solutions with Preachers podcast, and we want you to subscribe, and we want you to share with others, and let others know that there are some preachers out there who are talking your language and trying to engage with you, as well as I have released a book, release this book in December 2017. December 17th, 2019, called Commission to Love. And it is an exciting book, if I may say so myself. And I would love for you to go to Amazon, go to Barnes and Nobles, go to the places where you buy your books, whether you order it or whether you get it on a Kindle or digital, and pick it up and read it, because it can help move you forward and propel you forward as we think about what it takes to engage the church in this work of reconciliation, in this work of justice, and this work of community development. So when we come back, we'll have more with Pastor Matthew Watts and myself, John Perkins, and the podcast Postulating Solutions with Preachers.
Today, it represents a miracle. Probably about 10 years ago, John and I are at his house talking about different things that God has put in our hearts, and wondering and dreaming and just sharing. And here we are in Minneapolis, and able to have this time to be able to share. It really means a lot, and it really encourages us as we see God working in the community.
I'm Portland Pickens. I was the worship leader today here for the book launch. I'm super excited about this read and super excited about kingdom work. So I'm glad to be here and glad to lead the people in worship.
I'm just honored to be here and hear a little bit more about where this idea came from. And Commission to Love to me is the Great Commission, as they say, and it's just incredible to hear how they are committed to it and how they are passionate for it, and it just makes me feel passionate for it too.
Exciting to be a part of seeing what God's planting in the heart of these guys and in the heart of this book to bring to the church. I've known John for a number of years. We've continually grown in our relationship. He's visited my church, I've visited his church, and I really appreciate John's holistic approach to the gospel and to community, and really building the church in the context of all of that, and not just being an isolated silo in the context of the city.
Yeah, my name is Jerry Crott, and I'm living on campus at Crown College. This week we had John Perkins, Pastor John, and also Anthony Bobo share a couple seminars Anthony led, and John kicked off our whole missions conference on Tuesday night. And I'll tell you, we just saw God do amazing things through His Spirit that people on the campus had said they hadn't seen God do that in years.
I've had the privilege of reading the book a couple of times, and each time I've read it, it had more meaning for me, and I highly recommend it.
I'm a student at Crown College, study international relations. So we heard from Bobo and just about what they have from the book Commission to Love, and that is about the gospel, and that it is about the Great Commission, and that everything that we should do should be rooted in love.
So we are Stephen and Jenny Jones with I Am Intercultural, and it has been such a privilege to work with John and Anthony on the book Commission to Love. We're so excited for the C2L movement and what's going to happen in the church in America because of it.
All right, we are back to the podcast, Postulating Solutions with Preachers. My name is John Perkins, and I'm back with Pastor Matthew J. Watts from Charleston, West Virginia, and we are having fun right now. But as we are talking about all the things that we get to talk about in regards to postulating solutions, but it's not really that fun to think about COVID-19. Pastor Watts, we're talking about COVID-19 in regards to the fact that there was a special called The Color of COVID-19 on CNN last Sunday, and which you told me to turn to, and there were no pastors, there were no preachers, there was no moral voice on the show. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think it's possible, and I'm glad that we circled back to this, because I want to make sure that our listeners, our viewers understand that even though we've had some fun, we're not being critical of Don Lemon or Vance Jones. These guys are incredible resources to our community. They do a great job in trying to bring issues to the community. And the show was very well done. And and I really enjoyed the show, and we certainly appreciate the artistic abilities of Snoop Dogg and of P. Diddy. But the point that I was really wanting to emphasize is that the fact that preachers were not included is not a commentary, a critique, or a criticism of Don Lemon and Vance Jones and Van Jones and the producers of the program. It may be more of a commentary on where pastors and preachers are that receive high profile and a lot of attention. And they're doing some wonderful work, and they're building huge mega churches that's bringing in thousands of people every week into the services, as well as thousands, 10,000 more that view. But what it's projecting the church as this very well choreographed, very well designed performance of music and entertainment. And I'm not saying that that's what they're in it to do, but that's the way it goes across, because the medium of television requires that as you're trying to get market share and as you're packaging up what you're trying to do. And I think what it does, it's skewing people as to what is the preaching pastor, what really is his role and what is he doing. And so they're not postulating specific solutions to the problems of the community where their constituents live, the broader issues that are affecting us, like poverty, like poor health, lack of access to health care, the poor education system. These things are not being articulated when they have these venues to do so. So people looking at that could conclude, well, that's not what the pastor preacher do, right? What he does is this religious thing and talk about how things are going to be when we cross the Jordan River and how God is going to make everything work and all those types of things, and not the real postulating of real solutions real problems that affect people. So it's more of a commentary as to why maybe the producers did not see a place for the style of Christianity that people are now viewing based on what they were trying to accomplish. So I think our show is important in that we are true to the scripture and teaching the Bible and praying and visiting sick and all those things. But we're saying people live in a context, a crucible of pain and suffering. And that as a preaching pastor, we have a responsibility to not only prepare people, equip them to get to heaven, but to try to make the trip as pleasant as we can. Trying to address some of the problems that they have in real time. So that's the distinction I was trying to make. And that may be it may be a commentary on the church that there's been no real reach out to the church, to the faith community, by the government. It certainly hadn't happened in West Virginia, and I'm not sure about how things have played out in Mississippi. And I've got to get on the call here in just a second because, you know, we are expressing that concern. We got a call tomorrow with our Senator Joe Manchin III. African-American ministers. We've come together to ask for this call. He's been having a call with a lot of people, but he's not reached out to us. So, and we want to kind of lay some things in front of him that we think that he could consider doing as the senator to represent our states. So that's the type of thing I think that we are trying to get people to understand, that preachers have to be postulating solutions. We've got to be engaged in the arena of ideas and making sure that the ideas that we have are being put out there.
So you're telling me that we've been preaching, for the most part, in the churches, social media sermons that are galvanizing likes and hearts and shares for fame and for fortune. That's what you're telling me.
Well, what I'm saying is all that what you said is true, and much of what we are putting out there is not equipping people to deal with the specific challenges that they're going to face in the society, and that historically the church had played that role, and the preaching pastor played that role, and that's why I think that now this beauty of social media, what it does, it provides the small-time preacher on the west side of Charleston like me, the small-time preacher on the west side, West Jackson like you,
yes,
have access to the airwaves,
right,
and access to people,
right,
Facebook Live and other means.
Right.
And the best way I think to sometimes bring about change is by contrast, to be able to juxtaposition sermons and messages that's coming out of the heart of someone who's dealing with real problems with real people, and articulating real solutions as a part of their sermon delivery and their Bible teaching.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not able to reach 1,000 people otherwise on a Sunday morning, and my Resurrection Sunday message 3.6 K, you know, on Facebook. You know what I mean, on Sunday morning. I mean, so you're right. I mean, that medium is giving us an opportunity that we haven't had before, and even then, we are talking about the things around justice. We're talking about the Jesus who suffered, bled, and died. We're talking about the Jesus who lived amongst the poor, who came down from heaven, who was poor, who came down and entered into Jerusalem riding on a donkey. So I'm with you. I'm with you 100% there. So now, as we are the ones who have this job and this responsibility, and as we bring this to a close, I want us to wrap this up by postulating some solutions and talking about some of these things as it looks towards the African American community, COVID-19, the African American community, the job loss that's there. I mean, you and I have been talking about the fact what happens when you've already been in trouble, when you've already been in financial trouble, when you've already been running check to check, when you already have bills that are sky high. What's happening when you already know that that you about to get put out, and now you lost your job, and now everything is coming down on you, and you're in this crunch. And so these things are happening with us. And now this idea is that through Chicago, I mean, over 70% deaths, Milwaukee, 80%, Detroit, upwards of 80%, and so on and so forth. We got Louisiana down here, New Orleans. I mean, these cities being, when we talk about who's dying and who is being taken to the brink, when we talk about who's affected the most, whose immune system are not able to withstand this disease, we're talking about those particularly within the Black community the most. I mean, I want you to help me with some of that.
Well, I think some of the things that we need to do immediately, and what I've been sharing with the little congregation I'm gathering on Facebook Live, we've got to be, I mean, seriously and earnestly praying to the God of heaven that he would come down and bring comfort to these places. These citizens have been traumatized by these deaths in ways that we're not really fully understanding and realizing. And I would hope that someone in the media would realize that some of these little funeral services need to be aired on television.
Yes.
People need to understand that this is like when there's a war, but we never show the battlefield, right? And so people don't really understand the carnage of war and the toll that it takes on the soldier, and how they come back, and many times never the same. Our cities may never be the same, Pastor John. We're at a place we've never been before in this country when you cannot have a funeral. So people are going to be suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. People are going to be suffering from delayed grief, particularly for depression. I think there's going to be serious anger and bitterness because this COVID-19 is sucking up all the oxygen. It's almost as if a person dies and it's not COVID-19, it's not newsworthy.
Wow.
And so people are getting lost in the shuffle. The need to be pastored, to be ministered to be comforted, and to be consoled. And so as the church, we need to be praying for these people now and then equipping ourselves as soon as this thing is over, that we reach out to these individuals, right? That's something that we have to do as the church, as a part of our ministry. The other thing in the immediate present also, that we've got to do the best we can to educate pastors, community-based organizations, small businesses, that this money that's come from the federal government for these payroll protection programs, these small businesses, every penny that we are eligible for, we need to be trying to access, because we need that money coming into our communities.
Absolutely.
We need it most desperately. And that we got to be more aggressive in going to our own banks, our banks that's been handling our money and having our deposits. It's now the time for them to serve us, to help these churches and small community-based organization businesses get their applications applied, filled out, and submitted. We can't allow this be like the man at the pool of Bethesda, right? That's what's happening the first time the money came out. I have no one to get me in. So someone else gets in first. So we know that the system was rigged, and we know that a lot of this first pass went to the larger businesses. We understand that. And the banks, they were able to take off $10 billion off the top. But this second go round, it has the target.
Explain that for the people. How were they able to take $10 billion off the top?
But because the way someone had to process these loans, there's no way that the Small Business Administration could process the volume of loans, the thousands of loans that they would have to process to get this money out on the street. So the banks were the natural place for this money to go through, and the fact that a lot of these businesses have accounts at banks. But what the government did, they're allowing the banks to charge fees that I think they're in excess, right? 3 to 5% on loans that's up to maybe $500,000, and then larger loans a lesser fee, but still a lot of money can be made if I make a $2 million loan right?
Mhm.
And if I get, a fee on that, and that's what the banks did. And
Right.
it's not like that they expended the amount of money that they were able to make.
Right.
And that's the way the system is. There's always a place in it to where the establishment, they get paid and they get taken care of. But now the
Right.
second go around, from what I'm understanding, is that there's language in it that's going to ensure that more of the money get to the smaller businesses, the nonprofits. And I would suggest probably in most cities, the African American churches, small and medium-sized church, very few of them probably got money on their first go around. We now got to be advocates to make it happen.
Right, and or applied, right? So
And or applied.
right, so we need right now to help them to understand what this is and how to do it. And so, if you would, you can email me at Pastor John at cgjxn.org, and we can help you with the links. And so the first one that came out was the SBA loan. The SBA loan was the general one. All of this was to save jobs. So this is the general loan that's more expansive, that you can use this money to do different things. The second loan that came out, this one was specifically for the payroll expense. And so you can use up to 75% of this loan for payroll and 25% for some other expense. But it had to be somewhere in the fashion of your rent and utilities, so on and so forth. Then you had, if you had 1099s, there were special. There's another special loan that you could get, and then there was one more for the small business entrepreneur. There's a $10,000 loan. For that 1099 loan, you can get, a small business can get up to $2,000 per loan, and so we can help you with that. I have some contacts with the Jubilee Fund that can help you with that. And so right now they're telling me we got to go. But look, you can email me, and you can contact us on Facebook and on social media, on IG, and we can get with you and help you to get these resources, so that you can get in, so that you can get your stuff straightened out, so that you can be one of the ones who get your loans, that get everything taken care of. Now, let me just explain this one thing. As the producers are telling me, you got to go, you got to get out of here. Because let me just get this. Let me just explain this one thing. Listen, the idea is that the loan is a loan until the end of the year, okay? Until they understand that you have kept everyone on your payroll. And if you keep everyone on your payroll, it turns into a grant, okay? So if you fire somebody in the middle of the year, that's it. And so, all right, so we're closing out right now. We want to thank you that from the bottom of our hearts for joining with us. My name is John Perkins, and this is
Pastor Matthew J. Watts.
And we are both of the preachers with Postulating Solutions with Preachers, and we are so grateful and thankful that you have joined with us. Please subscribe to this podcast, share with others, and go and be blessed and do your best.
Amen. Amen.